In the aftermath of the humiliating end to Kevin McCarthy's speakership, many deranged conservative commentators and Republican politicians are calling for the next speaker to be none other than Donald Trump. But before we unpack all that, if you haven't yet, please hit that like, subscribe, and the alert bell. Maybe check out my Patreon. I'd appreciate the support. All right, folks, we have several clips to play. We're going to hear from Sean Hannity, Marjorie Taylor Greene, and finally, none other than Donald Trump himself. But here's the situation. Yesterday on October 3rd, we saw the utterly predictable, but still intensely gratifying, end to Kevin McCarthy's speakership. The House of Representatives is in recess for at least a week, so they're not doing anything. But when they come back, they're going to have to appoint a new formal speaker, especially since in about 45 days, we're going to risk another government shutdown, rather. And in this situation, many right-wing commentators and many MAGA Republicans in Congress are saying, hey, the next speaker, the guy who should replace Kevin McCarthy, should be none other than Donald Trump. And I want to play this clip from Kevin McCarthy, and he kind of tees it up for us.
McCarthy will not seek the speakership again. Now, sources telling me at this hour some House Republicans have been in contact with and have started an effort to draft former President Donald Trump to be the next speaker. And I have been told that President Trump might be open to helping the Republican Party, at least in the short term, if necessary, if it's needed.
So that sentence was hilarious, okay, because let's just presume for the sake of argument that this is a good idea. I love how Hannity has to subtly remind everybody that Trump is a malignant narcissist. He's like, I'm hearing that Donald Trump may be open to helping the Republican Party in the short term if needed. And Donald Trump is the leader of the Republican Party, so that's an indictment of his leadership. Now I want you to hear from Marjorie Taylor Greene, a sitting Republican congresswoman who lays out her logic for why she thinks that Donald Trump would be a great speaker.
Marjorie Taylor Greene tweeted this: the only candidate for speaker I am currently supporting is President Donald J. Trump. He will end the war in Ukraine. He will secure the border. He will end the politically weaponized government. She continued on with a lot of really great reasons for Donald Trump to be speaker. But
before we hear from her, I mean, all that's bananas. Trump has promised that he'd end the war in I'll end it in 24 hours. Believe me, nobody knows how to end wars better than me. It's interesting to say that he would end politically weaponized government when that was what he saw in the first place and arguably what he did in his first 4 years, but whatever. Now they're about to interview Marjorie Taylor Greene. She's going to expound further on her views.
But let's just go ahead and bring her in right now. Let's do that. Congresswoman, have you spoken to President Trump about your very public sort of nomination of him?
I think they've let him know. I'm sure I'll be talking with him today. But here's the deal. Now that we have an opportunity to elect a new speaker, I'm going to force Washington to realize and remember that the American people support President Trump. He is winning the primary overwhelmingly. No one's even close to him. He's also beating Joe Biden in poll after poll, and he has a proven 4-year record as president of having the greatest policies in my lifetime. We want him back as president, so why not make him Speaker of the House, even if it's an interim speaker, while we work to find another speaker. I think the House should support it. I think every Republican should support President Trump because he has supported them. President Trump endorses more Republican candidates across the country than anyone else, and his endorsements win and they work. So I'm going to force anyone that wants to run for speaker. The only way to earn my vote is to beat President Trump and match his policies.
Yeah, so obviously that was a ton of nonsense. So when Donald Trump was president, he presided over 4 years of awfulness. He inherited a great economy from Barack Obama, drove it into the ground by the end of his presidency, left office with a net deficit of jobs. He started a disastrous trade war with China. He mismanaged the COVID pandemic, and on and on and on. Just one stupid decision after another. We heard from Sean Hannity in the press. We heard from Marjorie Taylor Greene, one of the MAGA cultists. Now let's hear from the big cheese himself. What does he have to say about this?
Who should be speaker?
Who should be speaker?
Who should be speaker, Mr. President?
A lot of people have been calling me about speaker. All I can say is we'll do whatever is best for the country and for the Republican Party.
Would you take the job? Would you take the job?
We have some great people.
Would you take the job?
A lot of people have asked me about it. I'm focused. You know, we're leading. I don't know you. I'm sure you don't read too much in the papers. But we're leading by like 50 points for president. Now, my focus is totally on that. If I can help them during the process, I would do it. But we have some great people in the Republican Party that could do a great job as Speaker.
Well, what about
Marjorie
you?
Taylor Greene called for you to be Speaker yesterday. Did you accept?
Yeah, I think she's a wonderful woman, Marjorie, and a lot of other people are involved with that too. I'll do whatever it is to help, but my focus, my total focus is being president and, quite honestly, making America great again. Because
So you get the gist, okay? He's hinting that, maybe not, but you can tell he's not exactly enthused about it. But here's the funny thing. So having established all that, right? And listen, on paper, that'd be kind of terrifying, right? Because the Speaker of the House is usually, not so much when Kevin McCarthy's in the position because he gave the farm away in order to get the gavel in the first place, but typically the Speaker of the House of Representatives is one of the very most powerful people in the United States. You run the House of Representatives, you're more prominent even than the Senate Majority Leader. You're second in line of presidential succession, right? So it goes president, then the first in line is vice president, then Speaker of the House, before any of the cabinet members. So in theory, it's a very powerful position, but it's also very administrative. It's very hands-on. There's a lot of work involved, a lot of legislation involved, again, at least in theory. Very unfit for somebody like Donald Trump, who's extraordinarily corrupt, stupid, and incompetent. But beyond that, the rules don't allow for it, at least for Donald Trump. So normally, you don't have to be, I'll say this, you don't have to be, at least according to the Constitution. The Constitution says nothing about you having to be a congressperson to be Speaker of the House, right? Now, it's intuitive, and there's never been an elected Speaker of the House who hasn't also been a congressperson. But in theory, all it says is, I think it's Article 1, Section 2 or Section 3 of the Constitution says that just the House of Representatives will choose a Speaker. That's it. It doesn't give any qualifications. It doesn't say you have to be an elected representative. So in theory, Donald Trump at some point could have been Speaker of the House. The problem is, according to House rules, he can't now because Rule 22 or 26, Section A says a member of the Republican leadership shall step aside if indicted for a felony for which a sentence of 2 or more years imprisonment may be imposed. So he can't be Speaker of the House, at least under the current rules, because he's been indicted 4 times, as a matter of fact. So that kind of puts the end to that. Now, in theory, I suppose the House of Representatives could try to change the rules, but that would be, even if they had the votes to do it, it'd be, a PR disaster. Okay, so you're changing the rules to allow somebody who has been credibly indicted 4 times to assume the speakership, even though you put that rule in presumably for a reason in the first place. And again, that's assuming they could get the vote. So this is a pipe dream, and even if they were to pull it off, I imagine it would backfire spectacularly again, given how dysfunctional and chaotic the House Republican Conference has been so far. Donald Trump is not going to make that any better, and he's even dumber and more corrupt than Kevin McCarthy is. So it would just be a clown show to the umpteenth degree. But anyway, interesting stuff. We'll see what happens with the House of Representatives in the next few weeks.